Good evening, everyone. We are still in the process of gathering our members together, so please stay with us and we will get going here in a few minutes. Thank you. Hello, John.
Hola, John.
Good. Okay.
Muy bien.
We should probably do the translation services first.
So you want to do the translation thing?
If we want to have her announce it to everybody in Spanish before we get going, she can. Otherwise, once I set her up as an interpreter, nobody else can hear her except for those who sign up for Spanish.
Please do it then.
So you want to make the announcement?
Sure. Bienvenidos a todos. Si ocupan traducción, por favor, presionen el icono en la esquina de la pantalla y escojan su lenguaje. If you need interpretation, please choose in the corner of the in the corner, and then it will tell you what language do you need. We have Spanish.
Good evening, everyone. It's 6:21 p.m. on March 10th, 2025. My name is Don Gosney, and I welcome everyone to this meeting of the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. All members of the public are welcome to speak on any issue tonight that is on the agenda. There are speaker forms on the table that must be turned in prior to the agenda item being called. We also offer an opportunity under public forum to speak on any issue under the control of the CBOC that is not on the agenda. Depending on the number of speakers signed up to speak, we request public comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Under public comment, with limited exceptions, the CBOC is not allowed to reply to comments or questions. I want to give everyone a chance to speak, so if you have something to say, please raise your hand or get my attention. I will try to call on all speakers in the order that they get my attention. During staff presentations, please get the attention directly from the presenter. I want to remind everyone that we're being recorded and the system isn't as great as we might like. So when you speak, please speak loudly and clearly so you can be recorded where others can hear and make out what you're saying. If a motion is to be made, the maker of the motion and the seconder needs to state their name first so there's a clear recording of this. We need to maintain a quorum of 6 members in the room. If we have fewer than 6 for any reason, the way we conduct our meetings changed. If you leave early, or even if you have to leave for a bio break, if we fail to have the requisite quorum, the minutes will have to take note. We can continue to have presentations, but no votes. The goal of our meetings is to conclude our business in 2 hours, but if we need to extend, this will only occur with the consent of the body. If we run out of time, some items may need to be deferred to a future meeting. Please stay focused on our real purpose, to oversee the bond funds and the bond projects. Everything else is just icing on the cake. So you know, the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance, the land, labor, and body acknowledgement, and the anti-racism policy have become controversial issues when it comes to reciting them at the beginning of committee meetings. I've asked the superintendent for questions to be answered, so when it is brought up for discussion at our next meeting, we will know more. There may have been a breakdown in communication with the email I sent the superintendent. Absent a response, I resent the emails earlier today. When we have a response, we will revisit this issue for discussion. Two of my responsibilities at these meetings include keeping one of my eyes on the agenda, all the while keeping the other eye on the clock to do my best to get as much of our work completed and still get us out of here in 2 hours. At last month's meeting, we had a very productive set of presentations that solicited a lot of very good questions. This was all good stuff, except that it took a lot of time. With only 20 minutes left, we still had 2/3 of the agenda left. I became frustrated and allowed my tone to be compromised. I apologize for that. At the end of the meeting, Trustee Smith-Olds went on record commenting that the meeting felt unnecessarily tense. Although she did not use my name, I believe this was directed at me. For a lot of reasons, I will strive to win back your trust and keep anyone from feeling the need to make a comment like that again. Okay. We will have our secretary is working in Los Angeles tonight. Okay, so I will be taking notes and kind of doing her duties. Rather than trying to foist it all on any of you.
Good.
Because yeah, I don't want you running out of the room. Say, no, not me. So we'll have a roll call real quick, please. Okay, I am here. Our vice chair, Brendan Alvinard-Dotton, is here. Good for you. Arrived at 6:25 p.m. Ariel G is absent. Jama is participating via phone. Andrew Butt here. Okay. Andrea Landon.
Yeah.
Tashiana Johnson is not here. Lynn Johnson is not here. Lorraine Humes
Here.
is here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 in attendance. We need 6 for a quorum, which means that we can hear presentations. We can't discuss them. We can't vote on them. I would hopefully expect that we'll have one more person here in time for quorum.
I think you said we have one virtual.
But she, okay. On the table over there are some reports from a legal firm that explains what the new law is about remote. And you're only allowed 2 in a 1-year period. And January, February, she missed both of those meetings. Okay, so she doesn't qualify for that, for this meeting. I'm glad that she's here, but she doesn't count for quorum.
She's a member
Member of the public. Yeah. And that will be brought up next month for as an agendized item, so we can get a clarification. It was difficult to get clear information online. They kept mixing up years. You know, what was last year, what was this year? But the site I got was actually from a School and College Legal Services of California. They offer legal representation to a lot of schools in the state of California. Okay. We cannot approve the agenda without a quorum. We'll have to come back to that. We'll go to item E, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody signed up for public comments?
I do not see any raised hands.
Okay. I apologize. I need to write things down. I can't write and talk at the same time. All right. We are going to go straight to the district reports. Okay. And again, because we do not have a quorum, it is for presentation only. No discussion, no questions. So we'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, everyone. Ellen Mejia Hooper here, one more time for the good times. We have made it to March. So as our March update is reviewing all of the projects, and our summary chart includes our design projects. So Stige, which is a campus replacement, is in preliminary design. We do have some presentation materials on that tonight, so I will cover that when we get there. Kennedy modernization, we also have a few things in the presentation for this. However, as a quick background, we do have the main, the main project for phase one is in construction documents. We have the pre-phase to that in review with DSA. And phase two is in design development. Similarly, Richmond is phase one's in construction documents and phase two and three are in design development. Our Kennedy Critical Needs Project, which is that demolition project, we are finishing up construction for the admin relocation. We have the demolition of the projects, of the buildings currently bidding. And so we're getting ready for construction there and hope to bring it to the March 26th board meeting. And then for our construction projects, we have Lake going along nicely. Hercules is wrapped up and we're in closeout. Pinole Valley, we have an architect on board, and so we're getting those drawings started so we can submit to DSA. And on Shannon, we have the multi-purpose room again coming along nicely, and you'll see some pictures there later in the presentation. Did want to let you know about two community events. One of them has been completed. We had a great community meeting for the Stage Elementary School project, and we'll review some of the things that were shown there just last Thursday. We do have an upcoming event at Kennedy High School to celebrate the 100-200 building before we knock it down.
If I can interrupt, sorry, at 6:28 p.m. Tashiana Johnson arrived. We now have a quorum.
Excellent.
So we can ask questions and have discussions.
Cool. All right, so that's this Saturday at 2 p.m. Hope people can come and enjoy that event. We'll have a few speakers and then some opportunities to make sure you get your last picture on the grand stair before it comes down. All right, moving on to Lake Elementary School campus replacement. We are moving along. So this picture shows, I liked it a lot because it shows kind of the height difference between our classroom buildings and our new NPR. So the building in the foreground is our kindergarten building, and the building behind is going to be our new cafeteria. These areas that are open have some glazing in it. The areas that are open on the side here are roll-up doors. So should really engage this plaza that's going to be created in the front. And then this will be, this little gap here between this building and this building will become our new kindergarten entry point for all of our early childhood education folks that are going to be coming through there. As you can see, we're in different stages. Our classroom buildings, we are pushing hard so that they'll be able to be ready for the first day of school, where our NPR will be available later in the fall. So you can see we have our scaffolding up and our backing paper up for at least partially in this particular picture on the classroom buildings, and the NPR is a bit behind that as the trades move through construction from one building to the next. This is coming from the other direction, looking into the kindergarten complex. So we have two kindergarten buildings, E and F. And this area between will be part of the playground for the kindergarten. As I showed before, we have our scaffolding up, getting ready to start stuccoing once we finish the waterproof layers that go behind. And we also have our steel structure up that will support our covered walkways and canopy areas. At the multi-purpose room, previously the stage wasn't quite framed in. The last time we met, well, now the stage is fully framed in. We also have the acoustical deck going up over the main dining area. So we're starting to close in the top there. The other thing that's going on is that we had drilling for our pier foundations. And these are going to be for the main canopy structure that's outside of the NPR where our covered outdoor dining space will be. It'll also be a nice entry plaza for any community events. And when students are arriving at the beginning of the school, that gate could be open optionally from the gate that they're currently using now. But we had some fun equipment out there drilling holes, and so thought we should bring that forward. Moving on, Shannon. At Shannon, we have a similar look as we do at Lake for the multipurpose room. It's really kind of interesting to see the two cafeterias coming up together. They do have the roofing material up and installed on Shannon's multipurpose room. So this was before so we just had the plywood sheathing. This happened about halfway through the month, but I wasn't sure if anybody understood what these plywood covered areas were, and that's where our mechanical equipment is going to land. And so previous to this, this shows that the built up of the curbs. Now we have it all covered with our membrane roof. And soon the mechanical equipment will be placed. Some of these are for the actual heating and cooling, and some of them are we take our main refrigeration compressors and put them on the roof to keep that heat load out of the kitchen. And so then we don't have as much cooling requirement within the kitchen itself because we're removing that load and remoting it to the roof. And so that's why you see so many holes in this particular roof.
Should we go on? The plywood sheathing, is that all tongue and groove?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's not a standard requirement. Here we are inside the dining space. So we're standing in front of what will be the new servery. Looking out, the classroom building is through these openings over here. In this particular picture, we have the door frame in the foreground here, just about ready to be inserted into the space where it goes. So the framing has finished up and all the prep work was done to be able to start inserting the frames. So that's what this picture is depicting. These areas on the top will be cow wall, which is a semi-translucent material that will allow natural light into the space without a lot of heat gain or glare. So we're looking forward to that, especially because this is our south facing.
Okay, what is it actually made out of? Is it a plastic kind of thing?
It's not exactly plastic.
It's not exactly
I think it's
plastic.
acrylic.
Okay.
I can come back with the exact specifications.
What's it called? Cow wall?
Cow wall.
Cow.
Cow. Yeah. It's definitely not glass.
Yeah. Acrylic is plastic.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
a type of plastic.
Yeah, I
Yes.
buy a lot of it at Tap Plastic.
Fair enough. And so then we also have our mechanical, electrical, plumbing rough end going on. So this is looking inside the restroom. So these will be where our water closets soon will be, or toilets for those who might not refer to them as water closets. So these are the hangers that allow us for our wall mounted water closets to be mounted. And moving on to Kennedy. For the admin relocation project, there were some path of travel improvements that were completed as part of the project as required by the Division of State Architect. These took us a while to get done because of weather and compaction, but we finally made it and it got paved. And so the truncated domes that you see here separate the walk path from the parking area, which is a code requirement. Last month I showed you empty data cabinets without any fiber lines coming in. So this month we showed with the fiber lines. Yay! Wires make the world run. So here we go. We now have wires in there. We have not made the final switch over yet from the old fiber lines to the new fiber lines as far as them coming into campus, which is why we still have one pile of dirt out there. Unfortunately, we had it scheduled for Wednesday, but with coming rain, we aren't going to do that project right now. So we are going to wait for another clear window when school has an early dismissal day so that we can make that switch over, because we have to turn the internet off for that process. So coming soon, but we're all ready. For Stige Elementary School, so this one we haven't really brought forward in a real way, but the rebuild of Stige is in design and we're moving forward with that design work. Like I said before, we had a really nice meeting with the community last Thursday. Thank you for all who attended. It was great input. And so these slides were put together before the meeting, but we're presenting after the meeting, which is always fun. So just to orient you to Stige, in case you haven't been there or not familiar with it, the north side of Stige is Potrero Avenue. Potrero is one of the main roads that leads to the freeway. This is relatively close to the freeway. And so that's our northern border. Our southern border is the Cypress Avenue, which actually dead ends in front of the campus. Right about here, there's a cul-de-sac. On the other two sides, the west side, we have, we back up to other folks' backyards. So it's a residential area with the backyards that are borderline. And then on the east side, there is a community pathway called the Cypress Pathway. And then there are additional backyards. So giving you an orientation to the site. Also to the south is a park. So when you're looking out from the southern side, you're able to see the park. And so the architects had developed 4 separate options to be able to consider different layouts and how we could arrange the space. There's a lot of considerations when you're looking at a site as far as what the site itself offers you, the overall shape of it, what your edges look like, as well as elevation. So while we think of Richmond, especially this area of Richmond, is flat, there's actually quite a grade change from one side of this campus to the other. Not so much that you would think, wow, we're on a hill, but enough over the extent of the site to really make a difference of having to consider how we're going to manage our stormwater and how we're going to transition the building footprints. A lot of times we like to set all of our buildings at the same elevation, and on this particular campus that won't be possible. So we need to break up the buildings and set them at a little bit different grade across the site. And so you'll see throughout these different options, we have the dark blue is the main classroom building. So that's your 1st through 6th grade building. The kind of maroon color is the kindergarten building. The teal is the library and administration office space. And the orange is the multi-purpose room / cafeteria space. And that will include a kitchen as well. So we looked at different ways and different things to border Cypress. We've heard previously from the community that maintaining the drop-off on Cypress is preferred over the really busy street at Potrero. And so this option, we had the office over on the east side with the cafeteria on the west, and the classrooms pushed up against Potrero, and the TK adjacent to the admin, with a staff parking lot on the west side of the campus. The comments that were heard about this is that the classrooms felt really far away. And the kindergarten was further from the drop-off than folks liked. A north-south orientation is better for daylighting into classroom spaces. So that was accomplished for the main classroom space, but not necessarily for the kinder. And so we had a few things that didn't quite work on this particular option. We also had option 2, where again, we have the classroom facility or the classroom building along Potrero and really clustered together the multi-purpose room, library and office and TK into one bunch. This was responding to some comments that we heard of really wanting to try to create fewer buildings on the campus while still maintaining a building edge on Potrero. Again, this didn't have quite the community look and feel that they were hoping for, really creating kind of a campus that felt like a community that was co-located together. It felt a little dispersed across the site. And so then there was also options 3 and 4, and these were developed post our initial meetings. We had a few focus groups and heard feedback. And so from that feedback, we continued to work to come up with additional options. And that continued discussion about, well, we really want this place to feel like a community and we think the buildings should be tighter together. That was really how option 3 was developed, as in response to that request of the buildings being closer together. Although it was funny, once we showed this, it was like, oh, maybe that wasn't what we were really looking for. And so there was a lot of concerns about the exposure to Potrero and having the playground space too adjacent to the street, and if balls went over the fence and all of those kind of things. So that was kind of the reaction to option 3. So option 4 continued to work, and in this particular option, we put TK on Cypress as well as the administration, so that the drop-off for our youngest students was easier, but they still had that adjacency to the office space. We have the library right next to the office. We also have an opportunity to potentially add a visitor parking lot, which was something that was really liked in option 2. With the staff parking lot and service access on the west side, as well as having the multi-purpose room more centered in the site, so that our 1st through 6th that were coming to and from lunch weren't coming all the way across the campus. There's also an outdoor seating area associated with multi-purpose room that would allow some cover between the buildings. But again, allowing the classroom building itself to provide that edge to Potrero, which gives us a nice building presence on Potrero, but keeps our students away from the street.
Excuse me, for the record, Giamma arrived at 6:44 p.m. So we now have 7 out of our 9.
Excellent. So our timeline for Stige, you're going to see this for both or all 3 projects, Stige, Kennedy, and Richmond. We have really split these projects into 2 or 3 different sub projects to be able to try to move the project along as quickly as possible. So at Stige, we do plan on doing a demolition package, which is not required to go through the Division of State Architect. And that demolition is planned for late spring. And so that way we can get moving and really utilize the dry period of time when we don't have rain to get those buildings down and get the site set. Then we have a site make ready package that is going to include underground utilities and rough grading and the building footprints. And we plan on submitting that to DSA in this summer with construction beginning in the winter of 25-26. And then we have the actual building package, which is the full architectural plans of all of the buildings and site elements. And that is also going into DSA in the kind of the summer fall time period. But the review of those packages take longer. So the construction for that is planned for spring of 26.
I had a couple questions. Should I
Yep.
now?
It's up to her. She,
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Just because they're more specific. I was just wondering the number of classrooms that you're planning for its teach, and then also if there's been any discussion about art spaces.
So we do have what we call a multi-use room. We've done that both at Lake and Lake and Michelle Obama. And that space is really meant to accommodate things like music or art or science. So it's a little bit larger room. It does have a sink in it. We put more flexible furniture. That's the plan for that. I don't know off the top of my head the exact number of classrooms.
Okay.
I'll have to look that up for
But
you.
there will be a multi-use room?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. The one at Obama's.
Yeah.
did you have anything else?
And then is the MPR gonna be similar to the Lake and Shannon one? Or are they all kind of like generally the same across elementary schools?
They are generally the same. For all of Prestige and Lake and Michelle Obama, they're all being built off of the same educational specification. And so we have a district-wide educational specification that was approved by the board. And that is our baseline of where we start for all of these projects. And so that's really what sets forward the general understanding of what spaces are built and kind of how they're put together.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one thing before you move on to another school.
Yes.
I heard this several times the other night at the stage presentation, but also between looking at what we're seeing here and even the slide deck that was sent to us. The writing that is on the plot plans for each of the 4 options is illegible. I mean, it's not just small, extremely low resolution. So that when I'm blowing it up on my laptop, all I'm seeing is blah, blah, blah. I mean, these are things that we're gonna be hanging on to forever and a day. It'd be nice, maybe you can mention it to your architects that you'd want to read these kinds of things, because you even had the question asked by, shouted out from the back of the room. They couldn't understand or see where one of the buildings was. They were asking about the cafeteria. Where is it?
Right.
Because they couldn't read the label.
Good feedback.
Appreciate your help on that.
Yep. I can't fix it in time for the board. It's already posted.
That's their problem.
We will work on that.
They won't be able to hear you anyway.
All right, Kennedy, are we ready for Kennedy? All right, you guys look stoked. I know you're ready for Kennedy. All right, Kennedy is a combination modernization and renovation projects, some new construction as well. Phase 1 is our largest new construction component, and I wanted to give an update on phase 1 for both Richmond and Kennedy because they're becoming really real. We're getting close, people. I know nobody feels like we're getting close, but we are getting close. So the phase 1 building plans are in construction documents. We are moving and grooving, and that's really the time period where architects are designing the specifics of how different pieces and parts come together. So we're no longer considering where we're placing things. We're no longer kind of trying to decide what's in and what's out. It's really the time period for the architect to draw how things are getting put together. So our phase 1 site plan is delineating the new building, they call it the A building, just to separate it from the numbered buildings that are already on site.
Sorry, can you point out which is the A building? Because we can't read that either.
Right, so the
Which
A
state
building
school?
is this big L-shaped
Thank you.
block on the top. Cutting is on the top of your page. Burke is what circles around the bottom. The park is on the, north is up. And the east side is where the baseball and adjacency to the community park is. So building A is right along Cutting. For the most part, its footprint is replacing the 100, 200 building. It will be renamed to the 100 and 200 building once we build it. But for clarity in the DSA plans, it is referred to as Building A. It's primarily classroom space. It is a 2-story building for the part along Cutting. As you turn to the L that comes down, that part is a 1-story building, or no, never mind. It's all 2-story building. Sorry about that. Classrooms on top, admin on the bottom, as well as health and wellness space in the corner. And then building B is our combination performing arts and dining facility. And so I have some pictures there to help you see what that's going to look like. In this phase, we will also be doing the renovation that we have planned for the K-Quad, which is adjacent to the B building. It's just south of the 300 and 400. It's in front of the gym. So it's quite the student center on campus. And so that will be done as part of this phase.
Can you expand on what your plans are for that? As a Kennedy alum that cares about that?
I have a slide on it.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thank
And
you.
so we also have a trash enclosure coming in because when you do a kitchen, you've got to make sure you have your service access. So our new service access will be coming off of, can't remember what street this is, but behind the swim center and then up between the swim center and the gym. And so there's also a trash enclosure included in this space.
Sorry,
Before we move on too
Yes.
much, can I just go back to stage for a second?
Sure.
Because even in these, you see how it says like there's a swim center and stuff? Is there gonna be a space on these outlines and stuff for that?
For a swim center?
No, for the multi-purpose room, like the art room and things like that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was like, we're not building a swim center. See, there's no swim center on stage. Yes, there are. So the orange block is the cafeteria multi-purpose room. It does have a stage. It's not the same as what we're doing at Kennedy. But it does have a stage that's very similar to what we've built at our other campuses.
Okay, just because I see everything that's like outlined in the construction, and so I was like, does that need to have a check mark by it too, or?
Yeah, no, so that's the orange block.
Oh, okay,
And so
got it,
that
got it,
has
got it.
a
Okay,
kitchen, a stage, and a dining area.
got it, okay.
Is that different from the multi-use room? that you're
That's what I'm talking, yeah,
Yes.
the multi-use room, I'm
Well, and
sorry.
that's why the multi-use room is a hard, we should have come up with a better title. But the multi-use classroom is an actual classroom space. That is, and the reason we call it a multi-use classroom is because we don't count it as part of our capacity count calculations. So that, what that means is we don't intend for a class to be in there. Like, that's not Miss Smith's 5th period class, right? It's an open room that's utilized for pull-out or special program space, where the multi-purpose room is, and I try to stay away too much from saying NPR or multi-purpose room because I've found that people get confused on what that really means. And what that really is it's a dining facility. It's meant to be a dining facility, but you can also use it for, it has a stage.
Yeah,
So-
so the cafeteria,
So
yeah.
it's the cafeteria.
Yeah, I just was wondering about that, because it was a good question. I was like, is there gonna actually be a room designated on the templates or not?
Right, so the multi-use room is actually in the blue building block,
Okay.
or the multi-use classroom.
Yes, it's kinda, I'm gonna call it MER. The MER, yeah, the MER.
One of the things later in the packet are some of the additional slides from the Stage community meeting from last week, as well as very similarly what will be going to the board on Wednesday. And so quick preview, there's some more descriptors that's also color coded because Ms. Mejia Hooper is an amazing teacher. And so it'll give some of that additional detail to what's inside those colored spaces. And then you'll have that available here.
If I could add, that's why it's important to actually look at this, the Steve stuff online on your computer, because it's color coded.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
no, I
as
understand that,
As
but I don't,
opposed to what you're seeing here, which is just all 256 shades of gray.
oh, no, and I get that. It's color coded there, but
Yeah.
I don't see anywhere that says multi-use room.
Well, it's in
So-
it's in further down the slide. So I tried to combine or to bring you the really good stuff, and maybe I didn't pare
Oh, no,
down
it was just a good
appropriately.
question, yeah, and I was like, is that supposed to be there? It was just a genuine question.
Yeah. So I didn't include the full presentation from,
It's in here.
right, yeah, but then Dawn added it. So we kind of have overlapping pages.
Yes.
Okay, Kennedy, back to Kennedy. So moving on.
I'm sorry, before you even get that, since you were talking about the trash pickup, and so I'm very pleased to see that it's hidden away in the back as opposed to the beautiful El Cerrito High School campus where it's right on the front door. As you drive up to the school, all you see are dumpsters and the rats running around them at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not a very pretty sight.
This is the reason why I typically sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, This is an Ivy League connection.
You sleep at that time.
High school. I was sitting with the Ivy League connection students at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
So we are busy developing the interiors for the phase one components. We had a great activity with the students where we brought them different color schemes and they did some sticker voting. We also had an online survey to talk about what color schemes we wanted on this campus. And so this is what the main student entry space could look like. We did have additional comments on this that haven't been picked up just yet, so we're still refining the materials and colors, but I wanted to give you at least a preview. And so this would be when students are coming into campus, the entrance off of Cutting and coming through to get into the main interior of the campus. So we have an overhead bridge that is within this foyer. And then we have our classroom space where you can see there are windows, just in case anybody was worried, there are windows. We got them. They're great. They're fantastic windows.
Looks like a huge size of a room for that classroom.
It's a typical classroom size, but it is larger than what they have right now. So the 100 and 200 building did not have 960 square foot rooms, but what we're building now will be. And so that's an improvement that will happen at both Kennedy and Richmond. The front bank of Richmond also has pretty small classroom spaces. So we will be adjusting those to make them appropriately sized.
For those, some of us that actually went to class in those windowless rooms, few of us turned out okay.
Well, and we say that good teaching can happen absolutely anywhere. But if you have great learning environments, it only helps everybody achieve their full potential. But we never discount the fact that a good teacher can teach somebody in a really rotten space. So the phase one timeline, we have 3 designs, packages planned for phase one for the Kennedy campus. We do have the demolition package, which is part of our critical needs project. That'll be underway this spring. And so we'll be doing utility relocation and safe off and removal of some of the interior finishes and materials during the spring with major demolition planned for the summer. And then we'll have a building pad package, which again will establish the building footprints as well as the underground. So getting our rough grading done. This is a DSA package and It is in DSA right now and we are in back check, so we are hoping for stamp out really soon. As soon as it gets stamped out, it will go out to bid. And we plan for construction in the fall after the demolition is complete. And then we'll do the actual bid package with that is planned to be submitted to DSA in the winter of 25-26 and construction beginning in the summer of 26 with move-in scheduled for the winter of 27-28.
How many total phases are there for the plan?
We kind of combined phase 2 and 3. There was originally phase 2 and 3, but now that's getting mushed together. And so there's technically 2 phases. However, within the second phase, we are going to have a variety of sub-phases because we're going to try to do some of the work only during the summer and not have to close all of the buildings down. And minimize the amount of swing space we have to utilize, but we're still working out exactly how that's going to be accomplished.
Is there somewhere in the presentation that people could look to see the full design of the phases?
So not in this particular update. This is really focusing on phase 1 because it's the one that's really real. We put a pause on our phase 2 development so that we could get phase 1 moving. So we kind of brought everything up to schematic design level. And then we left phase 2 and 3 to marinate for a while. And so now we're just picking up phase 2 and 3 and starting those user group meetings and getting into real design development. And so while we have a site plan, the PE spaces and some of the exterior spaces really haven't been thought through. They've been placed on the site to make sure that we have space for them, but their final location has definitely not been determined yet. So while you can go on the website and find an overall site plan, it really isn't gelled as to the same level that our phase 1 plans are.
Is there any of the existing buildings, the 300, 400, 800, 600 or gym that's slated to stay?
All of those are slated to stay.
They are, okay.
Yeah, so that's our
They're the second
renovation
phase.
project.
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay.
Yeah.
So what's phase 2, 3? Where is that, where would that fit on the site?
So if I go back to the site plan real fast. So all the other buildings that you see in the lighter tone are meant to be either modernized or renovated.
Not demolished and replaced.
They're not demolished and replaced. And so, but the area in the southern area where currently the Temp campus is, like I said, we have a layout plan that shows kind of basketball courts and tennis courts and those kind of things out there, but it really hasn't been fully vetted as far as the final locations for those elements.
Thanks.
2 questions. You use the phrase swing site?
Swing space.
Swing site, what is that?
That is where we temporarily place people while you're in construction.
Okay,
So right now, this Temp campus down here is considered swing space for the people who were in the 100 and 200 building.
okay. And this drawing, the upper right-hand quadrant, that's parking space, isn't it?
That is parking.
Okay, you said light gray and it looks like a building from this
Oh,
distance.
sorry.
Yeah,
The reason this is more hatched is because it is part of phase 1. So the staff parking lot, the redo of the staff parking lot is part of the phase 1 construction
what
document.
are they gonna redo on it?
We're actually gonna rework it. So we need to provide some bio basins within it. We're redoing the striping layout so that it's more efficient. And we're providing a little bit more visitor parking lot or visitor parking spaces. The staff parking lot currently is not well utilized by the staff. You'll notice when you go by that the last rows are always empty. And so we're reworking that a little bit to provide some visitor parking space and a little less staff parking space, but still plenty for how they utilize it.
Your plans, how is that gonna affect all of the solar panel?
The solar
structure?
panel is going to remain in place. So we will be working around the existing solar panels. This building actually is further out than our current building, so the first row parking is gonna become a sidewalk area. And the solar is gonna provide some covered, entry, for the building itself.
That's where I had a parking spot. It's okay, I don't use it anymore.
Yes,
Now,
Lauren?
I've heard, I think I remember hearing that it takes about 5 years from the time the architect starts to when you start construction. Is that correct?
That's a little long. Maybe the end of construction, I would say absolutely.
Okay.
It depends on the scale and size of the project, but, it is often about that length of time from beginning of a project to end of project. These are gonna last longer because they're multi-phase. But that's not atypical. Because you think about DSA, being 6 to 9 months. And then you've got bidding in there, which will add another 1 to 2 months to it. And so by the time you just get through the permit and bidding process, you're at almost a year. And then you have 2 years of design and 2 years of construction, and voila, you made it to 5, and it's shocking, but true.
It is surprising how long it takes, yeah.
Yeah, so that, I
Because you
mean,
were
but,
saying we're getting close, and they were, oh.
yeah, well, I mean, I've been talking and looking and working on Kennedy for some time now. And so for me, I'm getting very excited because all of it is becoming very real. And, you know, we're gonna be soon issuing a new layout so that we can deal with what phase 1 construction looks like, which we're gonna have to do some adjustments on things. So, and we're really getting close to the demolition part of this, which is a massive portion of construction. We're technically under construction now, which is why I keep reporting on the admin relocation project. Because we are under construction, but nobody's like, that doesn't really count. Like, it's kind of just a tiny project. That's not real construction. Well, come April, we're gonna be doing all the things, and we're gonna end up with construction trailers out there, and it's going to look like a real construction site, which is super awesome, because as soon as you start construction, guess what? You get to end construction. And then you get to actually move into new buildings, which I know for the rest of the world, a couple of years seems like, oh my God, another couple of years. But to me, which have been working on this for already a couple years, it's like
At your
thrilling.
community meetings, do you let the public know this?
Yeah,
So
we
they
had a
don't think
steering
it's-
committee meeting with the Kennedy folks in January to kind of hey, we haven't left you. And we brought forward the results of the surveys on the colors and the interior design kind of feel, as well as the K-Quad options, which I swear I'm getting to. And so that was good. And then we'll be asking to be able to come to a staff meeting here pretty soon to give another update so that they know what to expect next fall. And so, and we continue to send out our newsletters because Kennedy is under construction. We do send out a monthly newsletter. We're not quite there for Richmond yet, but that's only because we didn't have to demolish anything before we got going. So while Kennedy feels a little further behind, it really isn't. It's just I didn't have to get a building out of the way to be able to build something. So
If I can point out, you're looking at through one set of eyes. Those students that get to spend their entire high school career in portables are looking at through a different set of eyes.
And I totally understand
Yeah.
that. I really do. It is the hard reality of the scale of time of what we're working with. I am so sorry, Dawn. I really thought I had the K-Quad slide in here.
Right.
And I guess I didn't. I did at one point.
At least
I made
I don't
it.
feel so bad about missing it when I went through the packet.
I'm so sorry. You know what? It's in the board packet. So come Wednesday to the
Which I
update of
do.
the board. You'll be able to see the K-Quad. It's gonna be awesome.
But
That looks great.
Like, I swear I made it. Okay. Richmond. I'm taking too long, so I'm gonna speed up. Richmond, so Richmond for site orientation, north again is at the top of the page. 23rd Street is along the west side. We have the light blue is existing buildings that are getting modernized. The dark blue is the new construction for the site. And phase one really consists of this main building on that's along 23rd Street. It is a two-story classroom building with this L, not two-story. So I knew one of them was that way. We also have a new admin out front. This C-shaped building is what remains of the current main building, with the west side of it demolished, as well as the center mall space.
And your L-shaped building is going to occupy a large part of the parking lot, current parking lot?
It is occupying a large part of the staff parking lot and also being built in front of the existing theater. So when you see the theater along 23rd Street, imagine a really awesome two-story classroom building right in front of it. And that's where we're heading. Soon, people, soon. So phase one site plan, this one shows this block of the main building still there, as well as the theater still there. And this is how that phase one building interacts with the existing theater, as well as the existing main campus building. Moving on. We are also developing the interior design for this particular campus. And so in the classroom space, again, note the windows. I know people were really panicked. I got windows. Additionally, the same kind of design, we do have a teaching wall cabinetry area that allows storage behind the whiteboards. Indirect, direct lighting, pendant lighting in the classroom spaces. They should be really a nice space. We're bringing color into all the classroom spaces, so none of them are white boxes, but all of them have some level of accent in the classroom, and that was true for both Richmond and Kennedy. In the corridor space, there is this two-story building, so we need a stair to be able to get you from the ground floor to the second floor. This is kind of the grand stair in this particular building. There are opportunities for breakout spaces outside the classroom within the hallway. The architect's also going forward with more of an exposed structure in the hallway spaces. So that is part of the look and feel. There will be different ceiling panels and things throughout that cover portions of the hallway space, but there's definitely going to be areas where you have blacked out exposed ceilings where you do see all of the mechanical, electrical components, fire sprinkler piping. Within the classroom, we have acoustical drop ceiling, so it's a cleaner, less busy space, as well as a better acoustical treatment there. That's kind of the look and feel of where we're going for Richmond. It has a similar timeline, except without the demolition package, because like I said, we're not going to demolish things. We are going to take the solar off the main staff parking lot. But beyond that, we have a utility make ready package. And this is really because every utility known to man is going underneath our new footprint, and we have to reroute that before we can start construction, because we don't want the utilities under our foundations. So that's what we'll be doing first. And then after we get the utilities rerouted around our building footprint, we have our building package, which is planned to be submitted to DSA next winter, and construction beginning in spring of 26.
Quick question, do you know offhand how many, for both the high schools, how many classrooms will be in the new campuses versus? I don't know off the top.
I do not know that off the top of my head. So I'd have to get back to you on that.
Before you get into your next part.
Yes.
Yeah. First off, this section is, a lot of pictures are from the slide deck from the presentation at the community meeting. We are running out of time very quickly, but it's unless you've got something you want to add to those, they're more for your information than anything else. But I have two questions about the presentation you've already made.
Okay.
Okay, Stage in particular,
Mhm.
closed because of all the hazardous materials in there. It costs a lot of money to remove hazardous materials. And it takes a lot more time on that. And so maybe if you want to touch on both of those, but the second question is, anybody that's involved with construction knows that the cost and availability of construction materials is dependent upon a lot of circumstances around the world. And between the fact that we now have tariffs on lumber from Canada, glass from and aluminum from Mexico and other places, and the fact that because of the fires in the Southern California area, they're talking about rebuilding more than 20,000 buildings. That's going to affect both the availability and the cost, supply and demand of construction materials. How is this going to affect what we're going to be doing? Can you touch on that at all?
We
Or do you
can.
want to bring it up later?
Well, I mean, the simple answer is this is not new, right? Every time that we move into a building project, it's a global market and we are affected by that global market. And so it's something that we always keep our eyes on. Right now, there's some particular headlines in the news and that's understandable, but during COVID, we had challenges with supply chain and materials. When we have economic downturns, we have trouble with having supplies and contractors available that meet our requirements for school construction. So anytime the economy adjusts, it affects construction one way or another, and it's something that we've dealt with our entire careers, right? That's just part of the joys of construction. And so some of the things that we're working on in our particular situation right now is that we are aware that things maybe become more scarce or more expensive as time goes on. We do have product standards, district-wide material and product standards. However, those are quality-based. And one of the things we push our architects to do throughout design is to make sure that we set forward quality standards, but not necessarily hold us to a particular product. And that helps protect us from when some products become less easy to get. And we continue to evaluate that through construction and the submittal processes. We also are luckily in all three of these projects are done in a collaborative collaboration with our contractors, which allows us to order some of the materials early. Alton has a warehouse right behind there. We use that during Lake because Lake was occurring while the supply chain was still a very big problem. And so we continued to purchase and buy and store things as the market went through its various gyrations of what was hard to get and what was easier to get, and purchasing things in the right time of year. So sometimes like there's an annual cycle for lumber. And so making sure that you're buying your materials or having the flexibility to buy your materials, not necessarily the moment you need them on the site, allows us a lot of agility and be able to move forward with our projects. And so those are some of the strategies that we use. We also continue to look at these things throughout the project's life cycle. We do cost estimates throughout, and our cost estimators are very aware of what the market conditions are out there. And while nobody has a beautiful crystal ball sitting on their shelf, on their mantle, I keep looking for it at every thrift sale, but I never find one. They have the best industry. I mean, they're professionals at what they do, and they have the best information that we can on where the market is going. And we try to respond accordingly and adjust scope as necessary to be able to ensure a successful project.
Thank you.
All right, so yes, these were those, but one thing I did want to point out is the color coding part. So see this like mysterious teal color? It happens to be very similar to the teal color on those building site plans that you saw for Stige. So these slides, while a little out of order with my slides, do relate. And so the teal is the admin library building. And so this lists some of the amenities within that. The orange building was the multi-purpose room / cafeteria. And that talks about what you would expect in there. The blue is classroom building. So that 1st through 6th learning studio spaces. And
I see
the
what you mean about
magenta.
the color now.
Yeah, the magenta is
Because I'm
the
looking for
transitional
actual
kindergarten.
blueprints or like, you know, I see you now because it's all black here. I was like, yes.
Right, yeah, so
Got it.
it did happen. It's like I said, it's a little distant. But this
Got
was
it.
the full presentation from that community meeting. And then just because we can't help ourselves, it ended up in there twice. But these are also
Timing.
the site
Perhaps
plans.
you could, send out an email with the color code.
Yeah, these are the site plans that are associated with it. And if you didn't enjoy this conversation enough, I'll be showing these site plans again, and we'll be sure to point out the color coding early. We also have our standard status reports as well as our
I'm sorry.
newsletter.
In the middle of the agenda packet, there's also a hot link to the video of the Stige presentation, so you can watch it. I mean, it's camcorder, wasn't a cell phone. It's not Hollywood production, but you can hear, kind of hear what the presentation was, and they explain some of the things on the slide deck. Thank you.
So don't forget Saturday, come out to the community event at Kennedy. And that's the funness of the newsletters.
Okay, before we get into this, one thing I'm gonna ask, because I brought it up last time, if we're gonna have these public meetings, please let the CBOC know about them in advance. I did not know about the Stige one until I found out from somebody else. Did not know about the Kennedy meeting this weekend until I found out from somebody else. I got nothing from the district on that. Now, something I mentioned this to Melissa the other night too. The trustees would like to know about these meetings too, to be invited. So I'm just going back on record. Please share these information because it comes across too much like secret meetings where you're inviting only a core group of people instead of people like us. We get to pay for these schools for the rest of our lives. We'd like to be able to.
Do an email with both the flyers.
Okay, I'll go back and look at them. I did not see those things on either one.
And asked you to invite the CBOC too. But
So I did send out the invite to the CBOC, but not.
Oh.
Only after I found out about it. Then, anyway, so before we get into the PMP and the tutorial, we'll just go back to approving our agenda now that we have a quorum. Is there any problem with accepting the agenda as we've got it prepared?
Fine. I looked earlier, it's fine.
Okay, good. The agenda's been approved. Now we'll turn it over to Melissa. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So one of the things that we wanted to offer tonight, and I know we are running a little bit late on time, was if you guys wanted to borrow a laptop so that you could follow along on the websites on your own, or did you just want us to guide you through it? Because we do have a couple of laptops that were provided by our IT department if you wanted to try to log on to one. Okay, absolutely.
Also, it's 7:25 right now. Can we try to make sure we're done with this, say by 5 minutes till 8? So we can do with the remaining 2/3 of the agenda. If every time we defer something, it means we've got to cram more stuff into the following meetings. And it's gonna,
Already one.
yeah. Already left about two hours worth of stuff off of this meeting because of that.
So I think it's just, you want to just take this one over. It's already all logged on.
Okay.
Okay, terrific.
But I think you wanted one too.
Oh, okay.
There were two.
And can I just use your computer?
Absolutely.
Okay, terrific.
She had it for.
There we go.
Well,
So this tax, district one.
Yeah, sure she is.
If she wants.
I just.
I always think she has her kid. I'm like, she could take her
Yeah.
kid back there with my kid and they can have,
You stop that scrolling short.
So let's take a look at that together. What I actually want to do is I think we're gonna go ahead and we're just going to go to the internet. And is that okay, Ellen, if I just do that on here? I don't know what might be open.
You gonna do it?
A new one.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start on the district's homepage. So if you wanna just type in wccusd.net.
Look at that, I already have it up.
And then we're gonna use that to go to our CBOC page where both of these things are hyperlinked and available. So does everybody see that okay?
And okay, keep in mind, a standard thing on our agenda packet, we got the links for both of these things. And hot
Absolutely,
links. So,
So
absolutely.
you want us to type in this hot link?
So if you just go to wccusd.net,
Yeah.
that'll get you to the district's main page. There are two ways to get to the CBOC website. One of them is holding the cursor over About Us and going down to Committees.
Yeah.
And then if you click on Committees,
This is. It's very slow.
okay.
When we're on Zoom, it's a process.
Okay. So here's our committees page, and then when you scroll down, there's this CBOC link here. So when you click on CBOC, you'll get to the main CBOC page, and I'll pause for a second. So we all have a chance to get there.
You good?
One of the things that the CBOC page has is it has quick links down here in the bottom left-hand portion of the page. And so that's where you can always go to see the most up-to-date agenda packet. But also right below it is the bond program financial reports online portal, which we'll do second. We have our CBOC application, and then we have our program management plan. So I want to do a quick introduction to the program management plan, and then I have a presentation prepared to provide an update. So the PMP is located here. And so if you click on this link, it'll open up the PMP. One of the things that we did with the PMP is we wanted to make it a searchable document because we wanted it to be something that you didn't have to read all 301 pages for it to be useful. So it's divided into 4 sections. The first section is program and operations. And so that's where you can find general information like information about the CBOC, the different audits that we do, our facilities master plan. There's also a section on fiscal, and that's where you can learn more about the budgeting process, the funding process, the approvals process, invoice review and verification. There's an administrative section which really talks about the contracting process and the different types of procurement we use, which procurement is essentially how we get bids or proposals for different types of things and the different strategies that align with statute. And the last section is a PM section. So we call that like our project management section. So here's the PMP. It also generally has 2 major components. The first one is narrative based. And so it is rich with text, but we set it up in a way that it's also linked. So for example, if you were in the table of contents and you knew that you were looking for something and you really wanted to know more about something in the table of contents, then you can just click on it. And the document itself is going to jump to that section. So we really did try to improve the accessibility of it as an electronic document. But as you can see here, right, we've got our CBOC. It is very text heavy. One of the other things we really tried to do in the program management plan was provide websites so that if you wanted to navigate things individually, it was really accessible and available for you to do that. So first half of the document, again, extremely text rich. It's a narrative form. So the other thing that we did in the PMP is there's website links. For example, if you wanted to see historical audits, you could go on the website and get that information. The other thing, bless you, that we wanted to do was we really wanted to build in resources. And so the second half of the program management plan are all of the forms and resources that we use to do our work every day. And so, for example, we're going to click on this. We see there's a picture here of what the proposal approval checklist looks like. And it tells us here that it's in the appendix. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the back of the PMP, which has the actual forms that we use. We thought it was really important to be really transparent about the documents that we use. And for some of them, you can see the forms even have instructions on how we use them. Because what we were trying to build with the program management plan was essentially the guidebook. So that if a person changed in a position, the internal controls and the forms and the process that we use wouldn't change, right? There would still be, here's what we're using and here's how we're using it. So now that we've kind of dabbled around in the PMP a little bit, I'm going to take us back to the beginning. And one of the things that we talked about in a recent meeting was we talked about, I'm going to hit Control F, which is how we go to find, and I'm going to type project delivery method. I'm going to hit enter. And it's taking me to the agenda and it's giving me the table of contents and it's giving me a section here. So now I'm just going to click on that section. And here is a section. So it tells me down here where I am in the document, and it's letting me know that there are different types of project delivery methods. The first one listed here is design bid build, and it talks about some of the benefits and features of that delivery method. The next one is design build, and it gives us some of the different features of that type of delivery method. Well, at the time that this was published, the district at the time hadn't done a lease-back delivery method yet, and that is something that we're doing for both Kennedy and for Richmond. So we're currently working on an update to the program management plan so that we can incorporate some of the new information, as well as just some of the forms. So for example, there's a number of rules that we have to follow for public procurement, and some of those thresholds change annually. Some of those thresholds change when they change by the commission. And so when we need to update different things may change. And so now I'm going to ask you to jump back with me to our agenda packet. Yes. So now let's jump back to the agenda packet and look at the presentation. Were there any other questions about the program management plan before we jump into the update? Okay.
So before you do that, Lorraine and I have been around for a while. We were here when you were first developing that. I know it's your baby, rightfully proud of it. This is a very important guidebook, as she described it. So that's why I want to make sure that you are all aware that it existed, what it does, and how to use it. It really is a big deal. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And get her all her baby.
One of the things that we're really proud of is this was included by the CalBOC, so the California CBOC in their resources guide, as something to look at. And again, it definitely needs a little TLC, and that's something that we're working on right now. And so kind of following along in the packet, I'd like to kind of walk you through the update that we're doing right now. So we talked about what the PMP is and really what it was trying to do, right? And so document the process, procedures, and the resources that we use to do our work to ensure that we have effective internal controls. And if there is a change in the people, the change in the process, right, the process would remain the same. One of the other things that we know is when we do things uniformly, right, it ensures consistency. Our program is more than 25 years old. And so the quality of what we're doing and having that consistency really makes a difference. So the website's listed here. So a couple of the update previews that we'd like to share with you. So one of the things that we're doing is we're really trying to align with best practice also as our program goes. So project delivery method was a good example, right? It talked about design, bid, build. It talked about design, build. We're going to be adding a section for lease back. One of the other things that it's going to do is it's really going to integrate additional operational documentation, and I'll give you an example of that. It's also incorporating some new procedures. And so one of the things that's really exciting about what I would call what we're working on PMP 2.0 is the first PMP really came out of copious audit recommendations. So we had the forensic accounting investigation that set forth a number of recommendations, and then we had 3 years of program effectiveness audit. So the requirement is that you have a performance audit and a financial audit for your bond program. But we, in addition to that, had program effectiveness audits for 3 years. And out of those came a lot of different recommendations of things that we could improve. And so throughout the PMP is reference to some of those different audit recommendations and improved processes. Really what this update is doing, in addition to kind of bringing things up to date today to the program, is it's also incorporating user feedback. So we're audited against the PMP by our auditors every year. And we also have a staff here that are using the PMP. And so they're saying things like, hey, this works really well, but I think it would be really helpful if we did this too. In addition to the staff that we have here in our program, we have a number of different project managers that have come to work with the district and are really kind of assigned on different projects. And so one of the things that's really important is that everybody knows, right? These are the internal controls. This is the process. This is the way that it needs to be done. And what you learn every time you implement something is there's a lot of ways that you can improve it, right? And so if we're really trying to get better every day, and if we're trying to improve what we do every day, doesn't matter if I love it, that's just my perspective, right? And so what is the experience of our consultants? What is the experience of our staff? And how can we further improve what we're doing? And so that's really part of the body of work that's happening now. So a couple of examples of these updates that we're doing, and we're going to dive into accountability here in a second. That's where we're going next. Is when we first did the PMP, we had kind of our suite of reports. They were done here internally by a staff member, and that was financial reporting for the program. And we did have a change in personnel, and then a question came, how do we build something that's more sustainable for the program? Because we struggled to fill that position. One of the things that we did was we partnered with a consultant that provides financial reporting to various bond programs here in California and in other states. And we wanted to go further because we said, okay, you're helping us out with this information. We have access to this information at any time. How do we make this accessible to everyone, right? How do we make it so that our financial report isn't just something that's presented at a meeting? It's something that's available to our community, to our project managers, to our staff at all times. And that was really moving forward with the online reporting portal, which we'll look at here in just a second. Another example is it's really hard to update the PMP. It's a massive document. It was done in Word. I have crashed the computer multiple times.
Good for you.
And so if updating the document is something that requires a dedicated staff member putting aside their daily transactional work to do the update, we'll never get to the update. And so what we've done is we've essentially built a database. So these are all the different documents that we use. And as I mentioned, some of them have a cadence and frequency to update. We update our PAC, which we affectionately call it, which is our proposal approval cover sheet. We update that every year, and we update it by fiscal year. And there's reasons for that. So what that means is if we identify it here and we know that that frequency is that at the beginning of every fiscal year, that form updates, then it makes it a much easier process to update the PMP because we have that kind of identified cadence and frequency. And so what this database has done is it's identified all of the different resources and documents in the plan. It's identified what's currently there. It's identified if we're doing an update, and then further it's identifying with what frequency we need to do that update. This does a couple of things. One, it builds an internal library for our team here so that it doesn't rely on one person to do the update. It creates a library so everybody always has access to the most up-to-date form to use. And it also creates a much more functional way to provide updates to the PMP without it being this dedicated time of a month that some imaginary person has when they're not doing everything else, which doesn't exist. And so it becomes essentially, it transitions from being a PMP that's managed by a person to a PMP that is supported by the entire team, which we're really excited about. Another thing, and we've added this here, is really incorporating new procedures. And so one of the things you'll see on the website is we do have a link there. As you're looking at the document, maybe there's a topic that comes up at the CBOC where you're like, I'd really like to learn more about this process. Let us know. We're going to keep this open, right? We want this to be a living document. And so, yes, we've gone to the admin meeting. Yes, we've met with team members. Yes, we've gone to the PM meeting and said, tell us how to make it better. But instead of isolating that opportunity for feedback and improvement to a particular time, we've created this tool where anytime somebody has a recommendation, maybe you note something, maybe at 4 a.m., instead of being at the high school, you're digging through the PMP and you're like, this link is not right. Let us know so that we can update it and make sure that it's right. And so we want to crowdsource some of our improvement. We appreciate you taking the chance to look at it. We encourage your perspective and your feedback so that it could truly be the document that we want it to be, that ultimately supports the entire program and the community that's made all of this possible.
If I can interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
We only have about 10 minutes left for finish this and do the reporting portal. Would you prefer that we defer the reporting portal to next month?
I think I can fit it in because I'm actually at the end of my slides.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I want to make sure we don't shortchange you.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And we appreciate bringing all this information. We're really excited about the work that we're doing. So this really speaks to that engagement that I mentioned and really trying to understand those other perspectives about how we can really improve. And here's what we believe. So we believe that by doing these things, we're really going to be able to provide additional clarity to this program management plan. And by really being transparent about what we do and why we do it and maintaining that historical knowledge of those internal controls to ensure that they're maintained, it improves the oversight of the program and ultimately our accountability to everyone. And so, welcome you to take a look, welcome you to send us some feedback. And one of the things I'm gonna now, I'll pause quickly if there's a question, and if not, maybe I'll jump into the reporting portal.
The members of the public ask questions.
Ask questions.
This is impressive.
Yeah.
I've been to numerous CBOC meetings and this is a very impressive presentation. And, And my only question is, who pays for it? Where does the funding come from? Does it come from bond funds or from, other sources of funding?
So it's a good question. So the PMP itself doesn't come from bond funds. There are components of the PMP that have, right? So we have to follow the guidelines really of the Attorney General when it comes to when we can charge staff or consultant time to the bond program. And so if we're creating something for the purposes of the project, right, then that may be an allowable bond expenditure. When we're producing something for the CBOC that is very specifically not a bond fund expenditure, and when we're producing something that's for broader kind of operational efficiencies within just our department, right? We are the district's facilities, bond, maintenance, operations, and grounds department. Then we also don't use bond. And so there's a number of different kind of evaluations that we do when we look at where to charge it. I hope that, oh, my phone's talking to me.
This
It
is
also
definitely a lot of work. It's really nice. It's really good. Very thorough.
You're not seeing it at other CBOCs because they don't have our team.
Right, you guys are amazing.
Our team.
It's
really about everything.
we try to lean into our strengths.
These are hard to do.
And we are extremely complementary. And I think that's a great foundation for any team, right? You have to build complementary team members and let people really do the things they love. And I happen to love this kind of stuff. I probably made a guidebook everywhere I've ever been. But let's jump into accountability. So we're gonna follow our link and we're gonna try to stay on time. And this was the link that didn't work at the last meeting. And really the intention of this was to make our financial information available to anyone at any time. And so at any point, we have our project status reports, which are project specific. And so from the drop down, you can pick one of the active projects and then you can take a look, right? So one of the projects that will also have an update at the board meeting on Wednesday, quick plug, if you want to learn about all the really cool science features of the Hercules build, check out the board meeting on Wednesday because Ellen's going to do an amazing presentation.
You can't sit still, can you? You're
Super stoked. Which includes different types of rocks. Spoiler alert, definitely check in, call in and check it out. But one of the things, and this is still a work in progress, right? Because really part of our plan is just to continue to improve is a lot of our reports have a lot of numbers, right? And so how do we take some of those numbers sometimes and also reflect them with images? And so some of the things that we can see here is budget committed, right? We have some different designations, site costs, soft costs, which are kind of services that support a project. Hard cost, that's your construction cost. We see which different bond measures supported this project and then what percent. But then we also have the details. So down here, we can see the different construction contracts we had for Hercules. We can also see all of the non-construction team members and soft cost services that it takes to make it happen. And so this is the project status report and it's available for different projects. We also have, yes.
Now, I went through the bullet, the hot link here, right? And when I would go to a different school site, those maps on the right would keep going up in the air.
So do me a favor, when you try it at home, let me know which browser you used, which internet browser. So is Chrome?
It was not a browser.
Oh,
So maybe Chrome?
maybe Chrome.
Okay, because we can always check in with the website developer to see if there might be
Yeah.
something that we can update. And I'm happy to do like a Zoom with you if you want to show me, maybe then I can help
That'd be good.
connect the troubleshooting. Yeah, because I mean, if it's happening to you, it may be happening to others.
I'll try it again and just make sure that's happening, then I'll.
Yeah,
I'll send you an
definitely.
email.
Please do. So
Where is the link to this? Is it on the CBOC portion? of the
So
website?
it is on the CBOC website. And it's also available in the CBOC packet. Yep,
Is it on
and
your website, on the?
it is. So it's on the district's website under the financial reports. It's on the CBOC website and that quick links at the bottom of the screen. And then we'll also have it in the agenda packet. And so we looked at project specific, but we also have grouped by school site. So this report here, and you see that it takes a little bit of time at spinning because it's pulling live data. So this is not a canned report with a saved time and date. It is pulling the live data, and that transactional work is happening daily. So you can see here, this is all projects, right? So that's our full program. You can also choose a subset of just the 2016 facilities master plan projects or just the Measure R 2020 project. So if you want a subset of the program, that option's available here. And then here you can pick the level of the report, and I got 2 minutes. So level 1. So if you want to roll it up so that you see every site as a line, you can. And then level 2 opens it up. And this is where you can see different projects, right? For different sites. A good example, if we'll scroll down here, you can see, for example, it goes elementary first, then middle and high school. So we can see for our high schools, we can see some of that separation. So Kennedy's a good example. We have the critical needs project, which is a 2016 facilities master plan project. We have the field bleachers press box project, which was our very first Measure R project, but is also completed. And then we have our modernization project. And then there's some legacy projects over the entire program. Because again, these reports are showing through the entire program. So this goes back to fiscal year 00. So that is the reporting portal. And so we're essentially reconciling in 2 places. In my final minute, I do just want to share, we do have our business services coordinator here, Ms. Falk. She prepares our district financial reports. She brought for you here tonight the AP checklist that did not make the packet, but identifies all of the expenditures for the month of February. And so she's working closely with the Colby team to make sure that the reports are reconciled. And as soon as we have report 2 and report 13 ready and finalized, she'll be sure to share those with Mr. Gosney so they can be shared with the committee.
We thank you for what you have given us. Appreciate it. We have any questions or comments on what you just heard?
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great one.
Thank you. Now, before we get into the rest, the other remaining 14 items on the agenda. Okay, before we even get that, we were not able to get the financial reports to us in time to put in the agenda packet. I put it out to the CBOC. Should we even have just a presentation on it without, can't discuss it at all? And I only had a couple of people respond back, but it was, no, we should just defer it since we can't even discuss it. Okay, so that's why you don't have anything tonight on that. Second item out here, thank you to Lorraine and Brian Scott. We have this Becoming an Effective Watchdog booklet. It gave me a fresh stack of them. If you want one, Tashana, did you get one? Did you want one? Okay, I'll bring one over to you in a few moments. What? All right. Good enough. Okay. Okay, we essentially have about 23 minutes left until our 2 hours is up. We are not going to get through the 14 items. If you're okay, I've just picked 2 of the items that are going to take the longest amount of time. We'll just, with your permission, we'll just defer them. The explanation about the CBOC membership process, I'd like to defer that to a future meeting. And the explanation about those bylaws, appendices that we asked for explanations last time. That's about 35 or 40 pages. I don't think we're gonna be able to get that covered. So if you don't have no problem, we'll just defer those to the next meeting or a future meeting. Okay, I don't want to say next meeting because they're gonna happen on there. Okay? Okay, then we will just defer those. All right, hang on. Our next item was on page 7 of the agenda packet is consent items. Item G, we have the information request log. There's been no changes to it since September, 6 months ago. So I didn't even bother putting it.
I just want to make the suggestion that you tell them now, to put something, in the consent log with Sylvia and Melissa. In other words, any member can submit something.
Oh, I mean, you just said it. Yeah.
But you have to know who to send it to.
Okay, I will make sure I provide it contact information.
Okay.
Again, I just didn't want to waste space in here. It's already 136 page packet. Okay. Item H was the CBOC report to the Board of Education and the public. This was already made. My policy is to, I get 5 minutes to report on this stuff. I posted in the agenda packet, so it's a matter of record. Okay, the rolling attendance log, it's a standard report. The calendar shows our CBOC meetings and the board meetings. And then we also have the minutes to the our last meeting last month.
Isn't there 2 dates underneath the joint meeting? A March and an April on this calendar that's in here?
There's a March and a September.
No,
There's a March and an April 19th, and then March,
Where'd you see March, April?
it's on here.
Who put that on there?
The Gremlins.
and then the meeting, that we're having with, the Board of Education. It's the dual meeting as well. It has a date for that and then an April date. I thought it was next month's meeting.
No, the joint meeting is next Wednesday.
And that date is on there, and then there's also April.
Okay, I'll have to,
Yeah, so just to make sure that the joint meeting is next Wednesday.
yes, we'll get on, that's an agenda item in a few minutes.
It's on page 10.
Okay. I'm sorry. You brought it up, you said on page 10, you was talking about the April 14th?
That's what she's saying, I believe.
No, that's a
April
CBOC
No,
meeting.
no,
Yeah, that's what I was saying. There's it's the CBOC meeting for next month, in addition to the joint meeting
Yes,
on the 19th, correct?
correct.
isn't the calendar itself in here?
It is, I don't,
Page 86.
okay. We're clicking away 2 minutes,
Okay.
and, okay, but anyway, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. If there's no questions or comments on it, we'll just approve it as presented then. Okay. On to page 8 of the agenda. New member applications. This is just for information. Brennan Havenar Daunton and Giamma both reapplied to have their CBOC membership renewed, and they were approved. We had a problem with Gina's original application in that they canceled the board meeting for lack of a quorum. And so the dates, we've got to clarify that because apparently the date that the date it states was before she was actually approved by the board. We'll get that squared away, so we got accurate information on there. But I do want to ask this question. For renewals, are we even asking to fill out an application?
We are not. So our process has been when someone is getting close to term, in particular, because we had the situation where we didn't do enough prior proper planning, is we just reach out to the member to ask if they want to continue their term. And then when they do, we put together the crises for the board.
Okay. One of the things that we were deferring this item in the CBOC membership process. We can talk about that because it's important that we understand how things have been, how things are now as far as applying, and how they're being processed. Okay, but again, no time for it right now. But a very important item is item M, the joint meeting which is next week, now tomorrow morning. actually tomorrow afternoon early. I will be meeting with the district staff and the board to come up with the agenda for the joint meeting. It is not unusual that they try to limit us to only 3 items on there. And unfortunately, 2 of those items this time will be the financial audit for the bond program and the performance audit for the bond program. That's 2 out of the 3. Doesn't leave us much. I'm going to jump up on the tabletop, which is going to be fun on a Zoom meeting, and insist that we get at least a 4th item on there. But what I want to do is ask your opinion. What are items that are important to this group that you want me to push for? But I've got 3 items that I'm just going to throw out there. Our financial reports, as Lorraine pointed out 2 months ago, for the past 3 or 4 years, we're just not getting hardly any financial reports over the past those years. Our sole purpose is to review the financials of the bond program. Can't do that if we don't get the financial reports. There's a lot of reasons why we haven't gotten them, and that's not my issue. But when we talk before the board and staff, we can make sure they understand you've got to do whatever it takes to provide them with what they need to provide us with these financial reports. Because it is not a good look for an oversight body not to be able to review the reports that they're tasked with reviewing. So I want to make that, if it's okay with you guys, my number 1 item. But also, one of these reports we're going to hear, the financial audit is pretty much just numbers, okay? That's cut and dried, but the performance audit is a completely different subject matter. And we'll be discussing that in more detail in a few minutes. Okay, but our CBO convinced the board to downscope the performance audit to bare bones. There's hardly anything there. They're supposed to be looking at how the bond program works. How effective is it? And that includes the CBOC. Okay, and I think that we need to convince the board, we need to increase the scope, to expand the scope so that it actually looks at what we're doing. Because, I mean, we haven't seen the performance audit on there, but I bet you it doesn't say anything about the fact that we're not receiving any financial reports. Okay, because they're not talking to the stakeholders. Okay.
Who writes the performance audit?
Well, it's an auditor.
Outside.
Yeah, an outside auditor, yes. Okay. And the third item we push for is a comprehensive report of the 112 recommendations on the forensic accounting investigation. Where do we stand on them? This was brought up a year ago at the joint meeting. We heard anything more since that? We had all kinds of promises. They didn't happen. We need to stress on them. And one of the things that trustee Phillips brought up, a lot of the things that were part of these 112 recommendations are no longer applicable. We're no longer using that kind of accounting system. So why are we spending money to try to accommodate something we stopped using 4 or 5 years ago? We need to have a comprehensive report on it, because we should not, 10 years or 9 years after the FIA came out, we should not be trying to figure out where we stand on these recommendations.
Yeah, just a real quick reminder, the forensic accounting investigation was started in 2015. One of the district's employees became a watchdog or whatever, and he said something's wrong with it. So the board decided to go to and get a financial auditing, accounting audit. They did that, and the audit came up with 112 recommendations. They set up a committee to make sure that they are implemented. Then they have to get an independent auditor to verify that they've been independent, that they've been. And at this point, we had one report in 2017 or 18 from Moss Adams, who did the first part. We've heard nothing since then. We've gotten a report in 2020 from the district. And they say they've been implemented, but we haven't heard anything from the auditors. We haven't seen any formal report from the auditors. So that's what Don's talking about.
But do we have, from you all, do you have anything else do you think that we need to push for on that agenda? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and, you know, I think time is limited at this meeting, so we're gonna have to be precious with the items, but, how the district is supporting the CBOC with community, communication, engagement, updating the website, kind of everything under the umbrella of communication and our ability to share, have the tools and resources necessary to help facilitate sharing of information with the community. You know, it dates back to a presentation I think we had from the communications department for division, and kind of building on that. I think that's an item that I'm interested in, whether we can fit it into this one or not. I do think we should ask the director of communications to come back and visit one of our meetings.
One of our CBOC meetings?
CBOC
Okay.
meeting, yeah.
And,
But I think it would be valuable to have board member commitments around that topic of supporting the CBOC's ability to communicate effectively with
I agree on everything you just said, and just so you know, we have two of the board members that routinely attend our meetings. They're still here right now. They're silent, but at least they're hearing what we're saying about this kind of stuff. You have something else?
And Melissa, have we gotten the draft reports for the audits?
I don't have them yet, but when we met with both of the auditors, we let them know about the joint meeting.
When are we going to get, I mean, are we gonna have any chance to look at it before the meeting?
I'll have an update tomorrow.
Okay.
So I know that they're working on it.
And because of the law that states that, an auditor can only do it for 6 years, the same person in the firm. Would you please make sure you get the names of the people in charge? Because the company usually just puts the company name on the audit.
Anything else you want me to bring up? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item. We've already deferred item N, site visits. We all know how important they are. It's a question I want to ask. So by the way, Ariel G specifically asked me to put this on there. Okay, see, I listen, Ariel, you're not here, but I listen. I said, we've got three main projects, I think, that we need to focus on. Only because there's only so many days in the month, and they actually have work to do themselves. But I mean, Kennedy High School, Richmond High School, and of course, Stige. They've already said Stige, no, you can drive by. But, you can look through the fence, but that's about it. But Kennedy High School, it'd be interesting to see what we see if you attend the presentation on Saturday. Okay, but if we have, I mean, we also have Lake. In 4 months, we have Lake before Thanksgiving, wasn't it?
And
Okay,
you have Shannon.
what?
Shannon.
Shannon's, I'm sorry, yeah. You were talking about 5 sites there. I mean, how many can we do next week? I mean, that's the problem we got. But anyway, I don't know how many of you are even interested in site visits, but if you are, again, this is a communication between us and staff as well. What time can you make that available? I mean, taking off of work to do them in the middle of the day is not always an option for a lot of people that have day jobs. But we've also got the issue of the sun going down. And I would love to be able to have a site visit sometime this week, except it's got pouring down rain.
There's not much happening at most of the sites, right? I mean, Lake is under construction, but
Lake is,
Kennedy, Stige, or
with Stige, you can drive by. I do it all the time. I took pictures through the fence and everything. But as far as Kennedy and Richmond, it'd be nice to know, why are we spending $560 million to tear down a big part of it and rebuild part of it? You want to see it before. That's one of the important parts of Kennedy and Richmond. With Richmond, you have one site visit. It may be a very long time before you even at a point where a second site visit is worth anything. But Kennedy High School, you're gonna start tearing it down pretty quick, and as you mentioned earlier, you're gonna tear down my stairway pretty quick,
Come on Saturday.
yeah.
Would you like a piece of it?
Sure.
But this isn't like buying a piece of the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay, but any thoughts on the site visits?
I think what worked well, a while back, Brendan had sent out a Google form asking about availability. Just because scheduling is so difficult, and then, if we can establish, like, generally folks are free Friday morning, generally Friday afternoon, that's at least a starting place. To be able to schedule something, so it's not,
Okay. Yeah. Unless somebody says, stop, Don, I'm gonna try to push to get something going as quickly as possible. I know that your best opportunity is every other Friday, right?
Fridays.
So using this coming Friday as a starting point, is this a no-go Friday or is it, if you
The
were?
Go Friday.
Sorry?
This is a Go Friday.
Okay, that's good, it's good to know. That way I don't have to call you up and say, I just mark it on my calendar. But anyway, we'll see what we can do on site visits, okay? All right. Okay, item P, chairperson report. Okay, this can we read quickly. I said, I don't want to spend too much time here, but wanted to highlight a couple of things that might be of interest. Starting last month, the board allowed me to make the CBOC standing report. Unlike public comment, where I might be allowed up to 2 minutes to speak about CBOC, plus anything else I might want to speak on. I said, by the way, it depends upon how many people sign up. Even though I get there 2 hours ahead of time to be number one on the list, sometimes they don't pull my slip until after the 1 hour cutoff time, and now my 2 minutes is down to 1 minute. And here's something it'll hit for you. You can't say diddly squat in 1 minute. You can barely say it in 2 minutes. But anyway, the standing report allows me a full 5 minutes to speak on the CBOC. My first report was on February 12th. My next report will be Wednesday this week. Okay, as it has been my practice, I post standing reports in our agenda package that are part of the official record of the CBOC. These standing reports are not just a great way to inform any trustees that are listening and that can actually hear and understand what we're saying from the field. They tell me a lot of times they can't hear us what we're saying from the podium. I said, but it's also a great way to inform the public about our work. I know they're listening because I usually get 3 to 4 texts or emails even before I get back to my seat. Right. Next week on Wednesday, the 19th, we have a joint meeting between the board and the CBOC. And just for those of you that might be confused, it's not here. It's at Lavanya Dijon. Okay?
It's gonna be here.
Is it gonna be here?
That's what the board asked when they approved the schedule, because the acoustics are better here.
I agree with that.
And so
I have
the
no
plan
problem
is
with
for
that.
the meeting to be here.
With the public?
You don't get many public.
Not at the joint meeting.
Gotcha.
You really don't.
They're not interested in us.
Yeah, but we got all the chairs there. We got a big parking lot. We can have overflow crowd.
Now, if you had food, maybe you'd get them.
Whoa. All right, okay, so, I just want to stress how valuable these joint meetings can be because it's incumbent that we all show up and use this opportunity to converse with the board. Okay, I took advantage of the opportunity to attend the district's presentation to the Stage community. When we could hear what was being said, it was educational. When public events like this are hosted by the district, it's important that the CBOC, the trustees, and the media be invited. None of that really happened. At least I didn't think it happened at the Stage event, nor has it happened for the Kennedy event this weekend. At some point, this simply has to change. Lastly, I want to stress the importance of maintaining open lines of communications with you all. I send out texts and emails, but I don't know if they're even being received because I'm not getting responses from some of the CBOCers. This hurts us and it hurts what we're trying to accomplish with our task. Please help me as I try to find ways we can work together. Right now, I'm texting and emailing. Send out mail to your addresses, but even with the many resources I have at my disposal, I don't have addresses for a few of you. Someone else might stealthily follow you home, but that's not me. So I'm asking if there's a better and more reliable way to have a back and forth communication where I can get you information and you might reply. I do.
How about sending a text?
I've been sending a text and then emails.
Oh,
At the same time.
Did you send a text? Cause I don't think I've gotten a text from it.
Well,
I'll check, but I.
check because I know I have. I mean, I think 3 different sets in the last week.
Well, I got the emails.
Okay, we sent text and emails. It's all dual.
Okay.
And lastly, new laws when
Text.
I have, so I don't know, all of a sudden, they're having you hit reply all on the emails now. So if it's a group, then you have to reply all in order to even reply back to the sender. And so, yeah, I've had that a couple of times now. It was the most recent email as well. I did respond back, but I didn't hit reply all. So you weren't included in that email for some reason.
But have you gotten phone text?
I have gotten text. I got 3
Oh,
different
okay.
group chats and did 3 different categories
But
by Dawn.
All right. Lastly, new laws went into effect on January 1 with regards to remote participation at our meetings. As I've emailed what was able to pull up from legal services team and that advises the school districts, but I will seek clarification and agendize it for next month's meeting. I want something more concrete than what I've been able to pull up, but I also printed it out and they were handed out here tonight. Okay, are there any questions, comments from the public on that? Okay. What?
We did have a comment from trustee Smith-Foltz. Just stating that when she was president, along with the former president of the CBOC, they moved the joint meeting to the FOC building, but now we're moving it back.
Okay. All right, on page 9 of the agenda, item Q, the financial and performance audits. So every year by law, we're required to have financial and performance audits. There are 2 separate audits of the bond program. There are certain timeline deadlines on there. They are supposed to send us copies of them at the same time that they provide them to the district. That doesn't always quite happen. We've got a deadline of when we've got to have them received and responded to. Okay, most of the board is just receiving them. They're not commenting on them. They're just saying, okay, yes, you handed it to us, we got it. That's all the law says they have to have. Again, the financial audit of the bond program is pretty much basic numbers. It's pretty cut and dried. It's still important, if you're looking at them. Anton Younger were here, he'd just tear it apart. Which is good for him. We need people like that. Miss Anton. Performance audit is a completely different story. They used to have interviews with the key stakeholders, mostly us. We had an audit subcommittee of the CBOC. They knew this stuff inside and out. They would talk to them about it. They'd talk to the chair about it. They'd invite other members of CBOC to be interviewed on there. Because I'm not saying that anybody is doing anything nefarious. I'm not saying that at all. But when you ask, you say that I'm auditing staff, and staff is the only one providing with information, how do they know that what they're getting is right? And it's complete. I mean, when we have problems with getting reports or meeting or quorums or other issues, or membership issues, there's all kinds of things that we could be bringing to their attention that have an impact on the effectiveness of the CBOC, but we don't have that. What we're paying for our performance audit now is about a quarter of what we paid for 10 years ago. There's a reason for that. It's what we have right now is what I would refer to as the Walmart version. Okay, it's just bare bones. The law says this is all you have to have, so that's all we're going to do. And so that's why I want to push the board for them to even talk about it, to consider expanding the scope of our performance audit in particular, so that we have a better accountability of our program. You putting your hand up?
Yeah,
Go
I'd like to make a comment that, as a member of the public, education code, I think it's 15282, requires that the performance audit comply with audit standards issued by the Controller General of the United States. Those standards include a section on the purpose of a performance audit, plus 4 broad categories of audit objectives, okay? And in most instances, at school districts all up and down the state, they might use one audit objective, okay? As you talk to the school board, you should maybe emphasize the fact that they're required by law to comply with these specified audit standards. And these standards include 4 broad categories of audit objectives.
Thank you very much. I'll look into the specifics of that summation with the way report with the joint meeting. And by the way, so on the joint meeting, we don't want all of these items being staff presentations. Things I mentioned there, that's something that we need to bring up. Okay, because we're gonna have different input and different opinions on it than staff would. Anyway, the audits are a critical part of the process. We need to be able to get them in a more timely fashion than we have. Now, I know part of the problem that the auditors say is that they can't process all the information if they don't get it. And they're not able to get it in a timely fashion because we are so understaffed that the staff can't provide all the information to them as quickly as they need. It's a complicated process. I mean, they will be starting on next year's audit right now, almost. But yeah, they can't give us what they don't have. That's why we're bringing this back up to the board in the joint meeting. We can stress how important it is. You've got to provide staff with the tools they need, with the resources they need to provide so that we can give the proper oversight.
Don, when do we anticipate seeing the audit?
Well, we just brought up, we don't know, but we should hopefully by Friday night. Or that's when the agenda packet is supposed to come out.
2 hours Monday night.
Okay.
No, that's actually Sunday night.
Or Sunday night.
Yeah, but I'm being realistically, I don't think that, with the exception of Melissa, most of our staff don't work 24/7.
I don't know, we've got some really hard workers on this.
Yeah, they do. I'm not speaking down on anyone, but she responds to my emails at 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
And we haven't gotten a report in a while. Is there a way that they could just give us what they've already worked on, since they've been working on it for so long? They had to have had some complete already, right?
So
Yeah, like a draft, a couple years, something.
So the annual bond, financial and bond performance audit, they're due by March 31st for all districts. I'm losing all of my terms at the end of the day. I'm so sorry. So they're due by March 31st. Our district board policy goes a step further, and it says that the draft report would be made available to the CBOC before it's made final. Because they're an independent third-party auditor, right? And so they do have to follow what's called the yellow book, which provides the government accounting standards of what they have to review. And there's some additional information that I'm happy to share at the state level too, where I've gotten some resources. But ultimately, each auditing firm has a process that they go through. So I've learned over the years that some auditing firms, the same team that's doing the auditing is putting together the report. In other places, right, the auditors do the audit and then they send it to another department that does the printing of the report. And so similar to any type of team, each team member kind of has their role and then they follow what their procedures are internally to produce it. We've known this and we've worked with the auditors before, so we did share with them, right, our intention to have it. In fact, our items were essentially, all of our items were due to the auditors on Valentine's Day. Because it is a lot of documents and then they have to process it, review it, ask us questions. So it is a lengthy process. I don't have confirmation from either firm at this point that I'll have those draft documents by Friday. But it is our commitment that as soon as we have drafts, we do provide them to the CBOC as soon as we receive them. And so I should have more information tomorrow in terms of when we anticipate to receive them. there are two different firms. So as part of the overall district-wide financial audit, which has been completed and already presented to the board, Christie White also evaluates Fund 21, which is our bond fund, as part of their overall district-wide audit. But there's also a very specific procedure for bond audits. And so that's why they are separate. And they are required because these bond measures were approved at a lower threshold, so 55% versus 67. And so some of the requirements of that include these annual audits. And so we have last year's audits. It's just a matter of trying to make sure that we have the draft in time, such that the CBOC can do their review and have any questions to the auditors before the auditors make the drafts final. Because once they're final, they don't make any additional changes to the audit.
What we receive are draft audits, okay?
Yeah.
And we may make recommendations or requests that we'd like to see this, or we need to change that. I've never seen them change. Never. And I've been with the bond program since day one. They just don't change. But there are certain things that they don't include on there, like a signature or a name on the draft audit. They only do it on the final audit. Okay, but Lorraine, why don't you explain to our newbies here about the how frequently or how many years in a row a specific auditor can.
Yeah, it's an education code. It's not under citizen, I forget the number of it right now. But it says that, when you have an auditing firm, the person in charge of the audit can only do it 6 years in a row. And that's so you don't get too familiar with the people, and things like that. So, we have two auditors. The performance audit is by, E. Bailey. And then the, financial audit is by, Christie. And Christie has been with us for a long time. So they've reached that 6-year period. So now they have to have another person in charge of it. But somebody's got to track that to make sure it's so, and that's what we're talking about here.
So historically, the lead auditor for Christie White has been Michael Ash, and this year that's transitioned to Christie White. So that's our lead auditor this year.
Christie White's in charge.
Yes.
Is Christie a male or female? Just the name. Okay,
Looks
I'm
like
just
a
curious.
Female.
Female, thank you.
Christie's AI.
Okay, is there anything?
I have a
Sure.
question, just pose the question. Does it make, it is typical that we, in the spring joint meeting, we always go over the performance and, the both audits? Or, I guess the question I have is does it make sense to do that, given that we're not getting the material with any time to review?
Okay, we traditionally, no, we do not do that at the joint meetings.
We don't.
Okay, the board does it at their own meeting. Okay, but because this week timing is worked out, we're doing it here. We bring it up on our own meeting. We have the video links on there, and then it's brought up at the board meeting. But things are a little bit late this time around, as they decided to do it. And last year they did at the joint meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
I guess I'll put my more, direct feedback with the joint meeting agenda on the table, which is, I don't think it's a good use of time to go over the audits when we're all together and there's only a limited amount of airwaves to share perspectives. And so we have to share those perspectives with auditors that are presenting on material that we can review. And yeah, there's gonna be opportunities for us to ask them questions, but that can be done at another meeting.
Again,
That's my perspective.
you and I are on the same page on this, but what we don't want is for the board to approve it before we even get it. And that's what we would be having right now, because of the timing. I said, it's only, I think we did it last year when they were part of the joint meeting.
So you're saying we can, so this pathway would get us an opportunity to share feedback that would be potentially incorporated prior to board approval, even though we don't have a lot.
Yes, yeah. If I were on the board, I would want input from the very people who know the bond program better than anybody else, and would understand what's in that audit or not in that audit. I would want that input before I rubber stamp those audits, not afterwards. Because as was pointed out, once they're finalized, it's etched in stone.
Does that happen just because there wasn't time previously? It has to be approved.
We used to get them earlier, and we're just talking about a week or two earlier. Okay,
Is there a deadline for approval by the
Yes.
board?
yes,
What's that deadline?
March 31st. They don't approve it, they just receive it.
Yeah, accept the sanction there, right?
But there is ed code that says that the board has 60 days after receiving the audit to provide comments and feedback related to the recommendations of the audit. So yes, it's true, the board does receive it because ultimately it's an independent third-party auditor, right? And so they have a set of industry standard that they have to meet, and they have to follow very specific standards. And so it's their report, their professional report that they take accountability for. There is statute that the final report be provided to the CBOC and board at the same time, due March 31st, and then that the board has 60 days to provide responses. And I'm happy to share references to those statutes. Typically, when we do go to the board meeting for the board to receive those items on action, we have a slide that kind of summarizes the supporting ed code requirements, just to make that, surface for everyone.
So if I'm following you, Melissa, there would be, the board receives the audit by the end of March, and then there's basically 2 months that the CBOC could discuss it, provide comment to the board. If the board so chooses, they could provide comment on the audit with our feedback, right?
So what's happened in previous years is we did not complete the draft in time. So that March 31st final date still hit. So ultimately what happened was we didn't end up with a draft report for review prior. We ended up with a final, and we went to take it to the board to ask them to receive it. And they said, no, you need to go to the CBOC. You need to present it to the CBOC. You need to hear their questions and concerns. You need to provide written responses. And we've done that before you come back to the board. And so I think the board's really demonstrated that commitment to having the CBOC in their oversight role, really review the audit, ask the questions, have the opportunity to ask the auditors, receive kind of those written responses. And then ultimately what goes to the board, again, it's a final audit, right? Because it's the one that the auditors prepared. But along with it goes the questions, right? And then the auditor will come back to the board meeting. They're presenting the information. They're available for the board members to ask them questions, as well as, any of the questions or concerns that had come up from the CBOC. Try to do it in writing, right? Because that can demonstrate a question and a response. And sometimes those responses are staff responses, and some like management response is what they call it. And sometimes those responses come from the auditors, right? So specific to what their requirements are and what their process and procedure is pursuant to the guide. And so ultimately what I think does really come out of the audit, which I think is helpful, and I'll be honest, this is not something that I see a lot of other districts do. I think this is another thing that is pretty unique to West Contra Costa, is when the audit ultimately goes to the board to be received. I feel like there's a shared understanding of like, what did the report say? What were the questions that surfaced? What were the responses to those questions? And because that dialogue happened and it's happening directly with the auditor, so we don't become the interception of that, right? We just are facilitating that by bringing the auditor to the CBOC and then bringing the auditors before,
But that happens ideally prior to March 31st,
ideally.
and it's getting tight now, right?
It's getting really tight, and I can't commit for them. I know that I've confirmed the date and we've talked about it. I'll definitely follow up with them to see where they are. They may be following up with someone on their team. And so as soon as I know when to expect it, I'll share it. And ultimately, as soon as we receive a draft, we then email that to the CBOC chair and ask that they share it with the CBOC. So you're looking at it at the same time we are. We don't receive the draft report and then say, okay, let's go review this and then take it to the next meeting. As soon as we get an email with the draft, we're sharing that with the CBOC chair.
One of the things, the problem was too, was you get two audits and you would hold them together and send them both over to us at the same time. But you get them at different times, so why not send the first one immediately?
We
and
do.
then wait?
So we have, I think, what we don't have control over is when we share the report that we receive, what happens next. And so I don't mean to suggest that the CBOC chair doesn't share them right away, because I don't believe that that's true. Last year in particular, I remember them coming around the same time. So these auditors are doing these audits for just about every school district in the state that has a bond program. So the district-wide financial audit throughout the state has the same due date. The bond performance and financial audits throughout the state, they have the same due date. And so when they say like it's auditing season, right? It's bond auditing season. We're not the only district that they're supporting. And so ultimately, as soon as we receive it, it may be on the same day, it may be a week apart, but as soon as we receive that draft, I'm then just going to share that with Mr. Gosney.
All right. Again, look at the clock over there, but we won't get a little bit left, but one of the benefits of being able to discuss it at a joint meeting is we actually can discuss it. There's a potential for back and forth. Whereas if we go to a board meeting where it's on the agenda, you can sign up and speak, but they can't respond. They can't ask questions. It's not a give and take at all over there. So, yeah. Okay, we are way past the time that we normally get out of here. We've got two important items left. One of them is only going to take about 15 seconds, but the other one, item S on here, is time sensitive because one of the key stakeholders is going to disappear on us. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just continue the meeting until we can get these two items taken care of. But at the same time, be brief. You gonna say something, Tatiana?
Just depending on how much longer.
I'm saying
It's a school night.
10, 12 minutes.
Oh, that's
Okay.
it's a school.
The next item is the 2020 annual report between Brendan, who's taken care of it, and Lorraine, who's been a part of it. I've just tasked the both two of them. Give us an update. Tell us where we're at, what we need to do.
So are we on item S?
Yes, item S.
So, Lorraine, so you were gonna take the lead on the previous annual report
Yeah.
2 years ago that we missed.
I'm
And then I
going
was-
to do the transition one. It would be 20 and 21.
Yeah.
And, at that point, we transitioned we used to do it by the calendar year, and the board does all their reports by the fiscal year. So we transitioned there, so there's an overlap of 18 months. And, but I'm the only one around who's been here. I mean, we have so many new people. So, what I suggested is I will write that, and I'm in the process of it. And then I can have, Melissa, Ellen, and Don go over it for accuracy. And when it's presented to the committee, instead of you approving it, you accept it. Because you weren't here during that period anyway. You can't approve something you don't know anything about. So I'm taking care of that. I've been having trouble with my knees, so I'm a little behind. But, so I can give that, to Don or I'll give, I can give it to Don or you, wherever.
And so that goes up until 2022.
That's for 20 and 21 and 22. Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm on the hook for annual report 23.
Yeah.
Okay, and the status update of that is in process.
Twenty-four.
What's that?
What about 24?
So 24 is what we'll be receiving this year. In 25, right? We'll be looking at that.
It takes
So
9 months to
it's-
write it.
Wow.
So they will give it in 24, but we don't get it till 25. So you coordinate it with the audits.
Yeah, well, I guess typically, when do we, question for the experienced CBOCers here. When do we submit that report generally? At the end of
In
the
the
calendar
past,
year?
we've been doing it at the end
Yeah.
of the year.
If we do,
Hopefully, which we always shoot for, but don't seem to get to, would be to start writing it, the parts that do not then cover the audit right away, so you can get that done. But,
okay.
that's what we.
So, and then Don asked me just to kind of provide like a brief overview. I'll try to be as brief as possible, of the kind of the annual report anatomy. Of course, like that, this is one of our main responsibilities as the body, to provide a report. And essentially the main element of the report is, did the district bond program comply with the bond language and the law in terms of all of their expenditures? Kind of a yay or nay. And the rest is kind of contextual, statement. So any findings or concerns that we may have, summary of our activities as the committee, maybe a financial status update, financial summary, detailing how much was spent on what, and kind of a high level report out for the community to understand how the bond program has been operating. The purpose is really to inform the public, demonstrate accountability, highlight progress, and promote transparency. So, this is kind of the main deliverable of our work, aside from all of the meetings that we do. Although the other main deliverable, or the main responsibility, is that we only have to meet once a year by the letter of the law. So annual meeting and annual report is our main duty. So we're playing catch up at this point.
First up, Melissa,
Just wanted to share that, on the calendar, there is the joint board CBOC meeting in the fall. And that would be a great opportunity for the CBOC to present their report and be able to have that dialogue with the board.
September, yeah,
September 19th,
17th.
17th, thank you. I got the month right. Yeah, and one thing I will be doing, will be tasking each of you all to volunteer. I like that, right? Tell you gotta volunteer. We can't expect Brandon to do it all, but it's a great way to learn about the processes of everything. The more people that are on it, the easier it will be for each of you. We still got Brown Act requirements on there, which make it a little bit more difficult, but I'll bring that up at a later date and time when I start asking you all
To write the report, are you talking
to
about?
draft it. Yeah. Even meeting to discuss it. It's a standing committee. Brown Act says we have an agenda, you gotta post it.
And it hadn't been done since what, 2019?
20.
Can I add one more thing, John? And this is something that, when I served on the CBOC in Oakland, I was a contribution of mine, was really to try to simplify the report. It's a pretty massive report that I've seen from this committee in past years. And while we don't want to, limit the amount of information or transparency, we do want to provide something that we believe the public will read. It has to be the first page.
AI
But the first
summarizes
page,
your comments now.
the first page may be like really important because that's maybe the one chance that we get to communicate. So we think about how we can
Color coded, right?
enrich the report in a way that.
And we'll just bring up once again, old guy here, been around for a long time. I remember when our annual report was 1 to 2 pages, but also about 7 or 8 years ago, it was 125 pages. Okay, we have to decide.
Yeah.
What do we want? Do we want to go to the Walmart version? Or are we going to go to the Library of Congress version? Okay, that's up to us, but we have to ask ourselves, what do we want to include in that? Okay?
Don, I'm so sorry. I need to go.
Well,
I have
we-
to go
we-
until 9.
We can go one last item real quick, if you don't mind, the future agenda topics. They want you to leave and say, well, not mention that. Does anybody have any?
We're skipping item R. I guess.
What?
Bylaws and then-
Yes, then we deferred that. That's a 45-minute to an hour conversation. Okay, but-
Read over it for next. It's got a lot of
Please,
good
because it only took me about 4 hours to write it. So, anyway, future agenda topics. Anybody have anything they want?
Communication. Do you want me to elaborate?
Sure.
So, inviting the director of communications, it's kind of what I said before about, how the district can support our efforts to communicate with the public.
Is that also the
Resources.
person in charge of YouTube and everything? Yeah, the YouTube hasn't been updated in 12 years for the
YouTube,
CBOC.
Website.
11 years, yeah, the last post was a long time ago. As far as these meetings right here, but there was the joint meeting that got posted in 2022 or so. But even these meetings that we've been having, they haven't been.
I think they might be on a different channel, but I think they're on the district YouTube
Yes.
channel.
Because
I went to
they are, because I've had,
The CBOC has has a page on YouTube through WCC USD. And when you put in CBOC, WCC USD, it'll pull up anything and everything that's out there. There's nothing from the past as of recent.
I mean, it just,
Maybe we can double check.
yeah,
That would be
less than a
included in
month.
that item.
Okay, I understand less than a month ago, I actually pulled up, all of the video links for the past year and provided them to one of our new applicants. Okay, they're on the district's website.
But maybe it's a search thing that we gotta work on.
Yeah.
It's not being
I'll
labeled
show you really
correctly.
fast, because I actually looked at it before I said something.
All right,
Don, another item is just to confirm if this, the recording in Spanish is actually, recorded and available after the fact.
well, that's a good question. I
It's
don't-
only live, because it would be really a lot more valuable if we could record it.
So that's a great question, and I followed up with Dr. Moses, our superintendent, so if you could just check, she didn't see the email.
But I'm afraid of,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so can you
it's been
just
sent 3 times now.
double check that, because she didn't see it.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Nothing else?
If we come up with something at some later date, what's the appropriate way to?
Email me, text me, call me, full signal? No, I'll swear to ask from Chevron, so.
And then, did you want us to bring something for this?
I'll talk to you about
Okay,
it. Okay.
Yeah.
I've made the request.
Yeah, I've
Just
got,
didn't have it for today.
I've got some questions, very specific questions.
I look forward to partnering.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing else, then we are adjourned at 8:50 PM. Thank you.
Not too bad.
Yeah, we're only a half hour past.
Well, some of the board meetings used to go to 11 o'clock at night.
Whoa, sorry.
What a meeting.
The consent calendar item that authorized $115 million that included demolishing the front of Kennedy High School, we pulled it off the consent calendar and brought it back at 11:46 PM.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're
No, I'll be at.
Oh, you'll be this way, okay, all right. Cool.
I think you mentioned before you showed up that.
It should,
And that one, I'm not sure if that's on the agenda.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's why we have a.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because that is very interesting.
It is interesting, because I know they do post them, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. There.
Yep. Okay, good night.
Yeah, there's a.
Yeah. You came to like two practices.
I know.